Abstraction is the level of realism or iconography used by the artist to portray the images in the story. So when you think about it, whenever you're trying to represent an idea through language, you have a wide range of possibilities for how to represent that idea. Let's take the word artist, for example. Artist conjures up a certain image in your mind, but I could have chose a more concrete or descriptive word for artist. I could have said inker, which would be a very specific sort of job, a specific artist in the field of comics. Or I could have chosen a more abstract word than artist. I could have just said person, right? Used by the person, which would have given me a broader idea of what I'm trying to envision. So just like language has a ladder of abstraction, so too do images, and they change the way we interact with the text. So if I was trying to represent a person, at the most basic level, I would draw a stick person, right? And so this stick person could literally be any human. It's so abstract. I don't know age, I don't know race, I don't know religion, I don't know gender even, right? This could literally be anyone. I know it's at least a person, but that's it. If I go down the ladder of abstraction, though, and I get a little more concrete, now I have a cartoon or an icon or a caricature. This gives me a little more details about my person, right? I know that it's male now. I can make guesses at ethnicity, probably Caucasian. I can make guesses at age, probably a teenager, 20-year-old, somewhere in that range, right? I can even make a few guesses about, oh, social class or personality. But again, this is very much a stereotype. It's giving me just the basic details that I need and no more. If I go even further down, though, I get more concrete, right? Now the details give me even more inferences by which to make guesses of who this person is. I'm guessing now that he's probably a teenager because of the letter jacket. He's probably in high school, probably an athlete. Um, Certainly, I have better predictions of who this person is. And so again, there are infinite number of images I could have put between this point and this point, or between this point and this point, or even further down to make it even more realistic. The point being that the more abstract something is, the more of an idea, and the more concrete it is, the more of a thing. So we'll kind of go over that in more detail. When you think about cartoons, um, they revolve around this sort of hidden theory. For the life of me, Ted, I don't know what she sees in him, right? Referring to the stickman. Now, this is funny for a number of reasons. One, the joke itself is in the abstraction, right? She's literally dating nobody. It could be anybody. There's no sort of personality to this gentleman, and so that's what makes the joke. But what also makes it funny is that the young lady and her parents are caricatures of themselves. By drawing them in a cartoon way, they remind us of people in our own lives, right? We might be able to identify with these individuals as our own parents or as neighbors down the street, and we can identify with this type of a person in our life. And again, that makes it funnier because there's a degree of empathy there that wouldn't necessarily be there if they were drawn in a more realistic manner like this, for example. When we look at these individuals, we no longer put ourselves in their shoes. They're very much sort of three-dimensional objects, other people that we are experiencing. So it's not that we can't relate to them, perhaps, but they are very present in our minds as something other than ourselves. Whereas with the cartoon, that's not quite the case. Scott McCloud, I think, sums this up really well. When we abstract an image through cartooning from here to here to here to here to here, we're not so much eliminating details as we are focusing on specific details. By stripping down an image to its essential meaning, an artist can amplify that meaning in a way that realistic art can't. So let's talk about a great example here. The book Mouse is a Holocaust era memoir. And among other things, Spiegelman portrays the Jews as mice and the Nazis as cats. And so originally he got some flack for this because people were saying, how could you take a Holocaust, something such a serious event, and make cartoons about it? That's unfair, that's demoralizing. But his point, and the reason he made that choice was very intentional. He wanted to mask the reader in these cartoon type images so that you would put yourselves in their shoes. Another way of thinking about it, if he would have drawn this in a very realistic way, it would have been very easy for readers to put it up on a shelf and say, okay, yes, the Holocaust was this horrible thing that happened to those poor German Jews uh, in the 1940s by these terrible German Nazis in the 1940s. But by making it a cartoon, this oppressor could be anyone, and this victim could be anyone. They are archetypes, they are symbols, and in that sense, it has a much more timeless universal quality. Another way of thinking about that is South Park, right? Uh, Part of the reason why this cartoon is so funny and so successful is that it's drawn as a very abstract cartoon. If South Park would have been drawn realistically, you would have what's called the objectifying effect. Again, you wouldn't be interacting with these characters so much as ideas anymore, as the satirical farces that they are. You would really see them as humans. And suddenly, the violence and the circumstances of that show would not be funny anymore. It would be very grotesque and it would be very disturbing, or hopefully it would at least. So again, you could see as a comic creator the effects this has on your readers, and you could choose any one of them. I could make Superman be very abstract so that my young audience will interact with him, and that I literally sort of see myself in Superman. Or perhaps I want to make him very, very realistic so that my audience sees him as someone else. And so in this treatment, perhaps I'm wanting them to wonder what would it be like to really be Superman, that he really is a person with real feelings and real emotions. Or here, he's more of an idea. And again, there's a range within. And so just quickly, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about them, but you can see how different artists employed different uses of abstraction for different effects. In the good old Sunday comics, you get a lot of empathy by making these stereotypical cartoons. In manga, you get sort of a blend of the very realistic, objective sort of violent muscles and the very abstract faces to convey emotion. In Bone, you've got, again, sort of interesting interplay between some characters that are very abstract and that you, the reader, sort of naturally identify with and put yourself in their shoes. And then you've got a very realistic world around it that you're a part of. And then again, you can see any range of increasing complexity and the different ways that you might interact with a superhero when they look like this as opposed to this.